This is exclusive updates. So there's a strange story coming out about Angie Stone. This woman is claiming that she helped Angie Stone out the car and that she was okay at first, and then the unthinkable happened.
Driving the 6 hours home, showering, and processing it all. Here's the story. About 4 a.m. on Saturday morning, me and my daughter were driving to Charleston, South Carolina for her sweet 16th birthday getaway. We came up to a truck with a trailer and its flashers were on, so we slowed down some. And that's when I noticed there was an overturned vehicle in the fast lane. And it looked like it just happened. I pulled over, I put my flashers on, and I told my daughter to stay in the car. And I ran over, it was a van, and I ran over, and there were so many people in this van, and they were just trying to get out. And I asked if they'd called the cops, and they said, we're just trying to get out. And they were helping this woman out off the side of the van, and I grabbed her hand and I helped her get down, and she seemed out of it and was holding her hand and she was wobbling around, and I said, baby, you got to sit down. And then the next thing I know, I flew and I fell down to the ground, and it felt like something not ran over me but brushed over me. Like something just swiped over my body, and I got up and I could hear screaming, and I just focused in on one screaming, and it was my daughter, and all I could do was run across the highway and tell her to get back in the car. She had to move the car because if somebody else hit us, it could hit her. So she moved the car farther up the interstate, and I called 911, and they said they were on their way. And then all I could think to do was get to my daughter. And that's all I could do in that time. And when I was walking to my daughter, we're really running the best that I can do. I was in so much pain. My chest felt like an elephant was sitting on it. My legs were so hurt and sore. And I looked up, and there was an 18-wheeler there to cross the median into oncoming traffic. And I knew that's what hit me and ran over, and brushed over me was the 18-wheeler. And my daughter's freaking out. She had already called my husband by then and my father-in-law. And I just told her, we've got to get to the hospital. I can't breathe. It was so hard to breathe. I'm going to post a video of the 18-wheeler after I left the hospital, driving back through to get to my husband and my son. I will not be posting the vehicle in the video because somebody did pass away. They did. And I won't be posting that for respect for their family. I'm sore, I'm bruised on the right side of my body. I'm very stiff everywhere. But I will keep you guys updated. And the video is going to come at the end, okay? Hug your family tight. Hug your family tight.
And so if this woman is claiming that she was at the scene, well, then that means she must have gotten there before anybody else arrived, before the police or anybody. And so she must have been a civilian that was just helping out, and she's claiming she has pictures to prove that she was there. So you're telling me that she helped out these individuals and then was taking pictures too? I don't know about this story. This story is kind of weird, but the whole story itself is weird in itself, because when I first heard about the Angie Stone car situation, that incident, that sounded strange. The whole thing sounded strange. She had just made a video before the car accident, and she was saying how Universal Music Group been taking her money, and that she can barely survive off of what they've been paying her, and she needs her bread. And she said also she had a weird situation where she is hospitalized just before that. She said she just got out the hospital. And so was this something where they were trying to unalive her before that? Because she was speaking up, talking about she's about to sue Universal Music Group, and she needs her money. And so this is all very disturbing and strange. So check out my last video if you want to see that, because I have the full entire video that she released before the unfortunate situation with that car incident. So yeah, and then after that, when I first heard about the car situation, I was like, that sounds weird, because she was just complaining about her money, how the music labels owe her a lot of money. Now all of a sudden she gets into a car crash. Sounds weird. And now this story coming out where this lady says she was on the scene first, and she's saying basically she saw this Sprinter van and she went to help and get people out the car. It sounds like she first got Angie Stone out the car. She said Angie Stone was disorientated, but okay, able to walk around, and she would have survived. And plus there was others in the car, so she went back to the car to get the others out. And then while she did that, she's saying an 18-wheeler had ran her over. So that's a weird story. And then now she's saying she has pictures to prove she was there and everything. So, I mean, it's a very strange and disturbing story. And you wouldn't think that she would just be making this stuff up, but this is what's going around. I mean, this is what she's saying. And another thing to think about is Angie Stone was the only one unalived in that whole crash, because I think they're saying there was probably at least 3 or 4 others, total, at least 4 total, including Angie, 3 or 4 total in that car. And Angie was the only one that was unalived in that situation. So make it make sense, and this is almost it sounded like a Final Destination story or something. Because it was just like something where, okay, it sounds like it was really your time, because he was just hospitalized. She was just hospitalized. And then, she beat that. It sounded pretty severe. She got home, and then she's talking about the Universal Music Group. And then this happens, a weird situation like that, where she gets out the car. She survives that. First of all, the car crash itself is weird. And then she gets pulled out the car by a civilian who arrived on the scene before anybody else, and then got, while she was outside the car, he got ran over by an 18-wheeler. What? This is the strangest thing. I think, I would think that this is something that needs to be looked into more, because this is just a very disturbing and weird story. So, of course, Angie Stone was, like I said, suing Universal Music Group. They're not to be played with. We saw a lot of artists, something happens to them sometimes if they go against their label. Michael Jackson was going against Sony, and then a lot of stuff started happening to him, And I think Prince kind of something similar, where it sounded like he was not happy with his label situation or his record deal, and then something happened to him. So with En Vogue, she just came out and said she's been living in her car for the last 3 years or something. Dawn Richardson from En Vogue, I think that's her name. No, Dawn Robinson is her name. Yeah, so it sounds like she left the group, and she left En Vogue, and then she tried to attempt some solo stuff, and then she tried to join another group, and her career kind of went downhill. The word is that she was difficult to work with. And she's been living in her car, they said, because of a lot of failed deals, a lot of failed, she wasn't getting paid. She wasn't getting paid correctly. And it sounds like she just gave up and said she was going to do van life. So you wouldn't expect that from a celebrity, somebody that's been on TV and, at the MTV shows, all the award shows and all that. You wouldn't expect them to be in a situation where they are living out of their car. But it's not really the first time you've heard something like that either, because it goes along with what Angie Stone was saying. Was basically, it sounded like she was kind of struggling, even after a career that you would expect others to. Well, they both said basically others have been getting rich off their music. They said basically, both of them were saying that they see evidence that the music was making money. Their producers or whoever was involved with them had plenty of money, but for some reason they weren't getting paid. The artist wasn't getting paid. So, yeah, there's a lot to the story that, you kind of got to look more into. because going back to Angie Stone, some people are checking around the hospitals to see if she was ever checked in, and they said she was never checked in. So, well, the reason why is some people are saying, well, maybe she was just so unalived from that 18-wheeler or whatever happened to her that they took her right to the morgue. But I don't know, is that something that they do? I mean, don't they got to check in with the hospital first for them to do whatever they got to do maybe first, or can they go straight to the morgue like that? Who knows? I mean, this is a very strange situation. I guess these music labels are not all what you would think. If you're inspired to be a musician or make it into the music industry, you got to look at these stories and kind of, take a second and think about it first before you sign that first deal. If this is something that you've been looking forward to doing or trying to dream of being a music artist, maybe independent would be the best route, it seems like, after hearing some of these stories. Because, you see some success stories, you see a lot of people, well, you would think they would be success stories, but from hearing these stories, you never know. When you see these artists on TV and stuff, that doesn't mean anything, I guess, now. Just because they're celebrities and famous and on television, this goes to show that, hey, that doesn't mean they're necessarily doing that well. For some reason, it looks like these artists, they signed a bad deal, and it's worse than you think if it's such a bad deal where they can't even make ends meet. And if they speak out against the label, then there's mysterious disappearances like this. So this is one of the strangest stories I came across with this Angie Stone update.